The station hummed with the low vibration of recycled air and distant engines, a place where a dozen species crossed paths without ever truly meeting. Darien had been assigned to Waystation Kethra for 6 standard months, serving as a xenobiological liaison, a fancy title that mostly meant he filled out forms and kept humans from accidentally insulting the locals. He was good at his job. He noticed things, which is why, on a Tuesday morning that smelled of ozone and fried circuit board, he noticed her. She was Velhari, a species Darien had read about but never seen up close. Tall, willowy, with skin like polished obsidian flecked with faint bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her emotions. For arms, 2 where a human's would be, 2 more folded close to her torso, ears that swept back into elegant points, and eyes, pale white, filmed over, utterly still. Blind. She moved through the crowded market corridor with a cane fashioned from some dark composite material, tapping methodically, reading the floor with the precision of long practice. But the station wasn't built for Velhari. It was built for species with vision, with echolocation, with sensory organs that weren't located where the architects had assumed. The market corridor was a maze of pop-up vendor stalls that shifted daily, and today someone had moved a display rack directly into her practiced path. She walked into it. Merchandise clattered. Passers-by turned. And then, worst of all, they laughed. Not all of them, but enough. A pair of grethily traders, broad and gray-scaled, clicked their mandibles in the sharp rhythm Darien had learned was mockery. A human woman in a transit uniform smirked and kept walking. A young Pulhari, Lyasa's own species, Darien realized with a twist of something cold in his chest, looked away quickly, embarrassed, pretending not to have seen. The girl, she couldn't be more than adolescent by Velhari standards, crouched to retrieve her cane. Her bioluminescent markings had dimmed to a near-invisible pulse. Shame. He'd read that in the xenobiology briefing. Dimming meant shame. Darien crossed the corridor in 12 steps. "Hey," he said, crouching beside her. "Let me help." She went still, her head tilted, not toward his voice, but slightly past it, reading the space around him. "I don't need help," she said. Her standard was precise, formal, the kind learned from language tapes rather than conversation. "I know," he said, "but someone moved a vendor stall into your path. That's not your fault. It's bad station design." He began picking up the scattered items, small carved figures, mineral specimens, and stacking them back on the rack. "I'm Darien, human, xenobiological liaison, which means I apologize for things that aren't my fault." A pause. Then, faintly, her markings pulsed a soft amber. Cautious interest. "Lyessa," she said. "Velhari. Age equivalent 16 standard years. Currently lost. Currently fixable," he said. He stood and studied the corridor with fresh eyes. Her eyes, or the eyes she didn't have. "Where are you trying to go?" "Medical Bay 7. I have a sensory calibration appointment." He glanced at the overhead signage. All visual, no tactile, no audio. "Of course. I'll walk with you if you want. I know this corridor changes layout every morning. It's a nightmare even for sighted people." She considered this for a moment that stretched. Her cane tapped twice against the floor, a thinking habit, he guessed. "You are not doing this because you pity me," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a test. "I'm doing it," he said, "because someone moved a rack into your path and laughed when you fell, and that made me angry." Very different thing. The amber in her markings deepened. She extended one of her lower hands, the Velhari gesture for accepted companionship he recalled from his briefing. He fell into step beside her. He found out, over the following weeks, that Lyessa was on Waystation Kethra because her parents were xenobiological researchers studying the station's unique microbial ecosystem. She was sharp, sardonic, voraciously curious. She had memorized the station's original layout from schematics provided in Velhari tactile print, and the daily chaos of vendor rearrangement was, in her words, a bureaucratic violence. He also found out that she had been born sighted. That a fever at age 7, a pathogen that had no treatment for Velhari physiology at the time, had taken her vision in 3 days. That she remembered color. That she still sometimes reached for things she knew were there because she'd once been able to see them. He found out, in the way you find things out when you listen rather than talk, that she was brilliant. She'd mapped the station's air current patterns from memory, could identify species by the sounds of their movement, had developed a predictive model for vendor stall placement that was more accurate than the station's own published schedule. He also found out that the mockery wasn't unusual, that she navigated it every single day, that on her homeworld, Velhari who lost their sight after birth were considered incomplete, a cultural wound she carried in addition to the practical one. They think I cannot function, she told him one evening, in the observation deck where the stars burned clean and there was nothing to walk into. Your species does not think this. Some of us do, he admitted, but we've also built a lot of things to compensate for it. He paused, turning something over in his mind. How much do you know about neural interface technology? She went still in the particular way she had when her full attention locked onto something. I know it exists, primarily for military and industrial applications, and that it has never been successfully adapted for Velhari neurology. That's what was true 18 months ago, he said. I have a friend, Dr. Amara Chun. She's been running trials on a cross-species visual cortex bridge. It reads optical nerve data from a functioning eye. Any eye, any compatible species, processes it, and transmits it to a receiver fitted to a different nervous system. He watched the stars. She's been looking for a Velhari volunteer. The silence that followed was so long that the ventilation cycle turned over twice. You are telling me, Lyessa said carefully, that a human has developed a way to give someone else sight. She developed a way to share sight, he said. The donor still sees normally. The receiver gets a secondary feed, translated, adapted to their neurology. It's not perfect. Colors may map differently. Depth perception takes adjustment. He turned to look at her. But it's vision. Real, functional, navigable vision. And the donor, she said. What does the donor risk? Nothing permanent. Mild visual processing load. Some people report seeing double during active transmission until they habituate. He paused. I've already volunteered. If you agree to the trial. I told Amara I'd found a candidate. Her bioluminescent markings did something he had never seen before. They blazed. Every line on her skin lighting up in a cascade of gold and white and deep violet, so bright that they cast shadows on the deck around her. Overwhelmed, his briefing whispered somewhere in the back of his mind. But not shame, not grief. Something else entirely. You offered your own eyes, she said. Her voice was very quiet. It's not even a sacrifice, he said. I keep my vision. I just share the feed, like running a second monitor. He managed a small smile she couldn't see. Turns out I can spare the bandwidth. The procedure took 4 hours. 2 days of calibration after that. One afternoon where Lyessa sat very still in the medical bay while Darian stood across the room, and then she slowly turned her head and found his face. She said nothing for a long time. Then, you have lines around your eyes. From smiling. I smile a lot, he confirmed. I know, she said. I could hear it. Now I can see it. She looked down at her own hands, all 4 of them, and he watched her see herself, maybe for the first time in 9 years, and had enough decency to look away until she'd had a moment with it. Later, she walked the market corridor without her cane. The vendor who had laughed when she walked into his displaced rack didn't recognize her at first, didn't understand why the tall Velhari girl with blazing gold markings and steady white eyes was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. She stopped in front of his stall, looked directly at him, a thing the blind girl had never been able to do. You moved your rack into the walkway again, she said pleasantly. You should fix that. She walked on. Darian, 3 steps behind her, didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He just smiled, the kind that made lines around his eyes, and followed her into the light. In the logs that way station Kethra's administrative AI filed under notable cross-species interactions, this event was recorded as routine. No flags, no category. Some things, apparently, the system didn't have a form for.